Welcome friends to the 2022 Lexus NX 450h plug-in hybrid review. This is going to be everything you need to know, so let's get started. Personally, I was not the biggest fan of the previous generation, but pretty much every complaint that I had with the previous car has been completely addressed with this new NX. First of all, this is riding on the TNGA-K platform. We have an all-new infotainment. We have structural upgrades. We have 4 different powertrain options. The 250 model, which comes with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. We have the 350, which comes with a turbocharged 4-cylinder. The 350h, which is a regular hybrid. And then we have this, the top of the line 450h plug-in. This is the fastest NX available, and this is also the first for Lexus. They have never done a plug-in hybrid before. The NX 450h is the first one. I will get into the specifics of the NX 450h throughout the review. Other things to note, we have the latest Lexus Safety Suite 3.0 Plus. That is standard even on the NX 250, which starts at around $39,500. And that includes literally every safety feature, including blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. I really appreciate Lexus for making that standard. And also many of these safety features, they have been updated, like the pedestrian detection, bicyclist detection. It's supposed to respond a little bit better, a little bit quicker. This is also just in general a very safe vehicle because the Lexus NX is a IIHS top safety pick. Also towards the end of this review, I will show you how to take 2.5% off MSRP on a brand new NX 250 or a NX 350. No word on the 350h or the 450h, I apologize, but I did partner up with AutoCompanion and they are able to give you discounts on the regular 250s and the 350s. There seems to be about a 6-month wait for the 350h hybrids, and I heard from a viewer that the 450h plus plug-in hybrid, there is about a 2-year wait with this car that I'm driving here. In fact, I feel a little bit guilty driving this car around because people are going to see this beautiful orange NX and they read that it's a 450h plug-in hybrid and people are like, what is that? How did this guy get his hands on that 450h? Because this is a car that everybody is wanting and clamoring for. Same thing with the RAV4 Prime. These are great products, but unfortunately nobody can buy it. But we'll talk more about availability and all that good stuff towards the end, along with AutoCompanion and their discounts. For right now, we got the basics out of the way. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into the exterior segment, the drive, the interior, and then we will conclude. Okay, the exterior. It's been fully redesigned. We now have a much more cleaner and sleeker appearance with this new NX. I really did not like the previous generation. It just looked wonky and strange. This one is much more refined looking from the exterior. The spindle grille looks much cleaner on this new NX. And also in the rear, we have that 1-bar taillight design along with Lexus written out, similar to a Range Rover. I know many people pointed that out. Honestly, the reason why Range Rovers have it spelled out in the back is because their logo sucks. It's that green oval that says Land Rover in it. It would just look silly if you slapped that on the back of a Range Rover. But the Lexus logo actually looks good, so it was fine having the Lexus logo in the back. But whatever, I do like the way the tailgate of this car looks. It is clean with the Lexus word spelled out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Overall, this car just has a much more upscale, premium look compared to the old NX, in my opinion. It looks expensive and people are taking notice to it, partly because this car is finished in the cadmium orange, which is honestly my most favorite Lexus color for sure. Back when I had the 2020 LC, I wish I had an option to get the cadmium orange on the LC 500. It would have looked so sick, but we have it on the NX here. This 450h also comes with these black 20-inch wheels. You can also get 18-inch wheels on the other models like the 350h hybrid. And with the 450h, you can also get the F Sport package as well with adaptive dampers and an upgraded look and new wheels as well. Let's go ahead and let's transition it over into the drive now, because that is one of the main highlights with the new redesigned NX. Okay, because we are driving the 450h plug-in hybrid, this is the quickest NX on offer. Yes, this is pretty much a RAV4 Prime drivetrain. And although I haven't driven the RAV4 Prime, I have driven many RAV4s, and the NX is clearly the far more refined and premium feeling SUV by far. This is a massive improvement over the RAV4 and the previous generation Lexus NX, no doubt about it. We have your 302 horsepower, but we have an ambiguous amount of torque because Lexus does not state the torque figures on their hybrid or their plug-in hybrid cars. But all you need to know is it's very quick. It does 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds, but many sources have gotten this down to around 5.5 seconds, 0 to 60 time. Lexus is very conservative with their spec sheet reports, if you will. And this actually feels much quicker than 300 horsepower because this is the heaviest NX available due to the battery packs. We have an 18 kilowatt battery pack. So this weighs a touch under 4,500 pounds. I am currently driving this SUV in its pure EV mode. Lexus claims you can get around 36 to 37 miles of range. When I plug this in at my house and I completely 100% charge it up, the computer shows I get about 39 miles of range. But at 60 grand, this is one of the more affordable premium options that you have in terms of a plug-in hybrid. Obviously, the RAV4 Prime is around 45 grand, and I believe there's also the new Santa Fe, the Hyundai Santa Fe, which is a plug-in hybrid. But in the premium choice, this is the best in terms of its range. And speaking of the battery, there's a couple of different charging options. The base model 450h will come with a 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger, but this particular car has the upgraded 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger. That means you can charge this up a little bit quicker in around 2.5 hours versus 4.5 hours if you had the base 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger. I have a level 2 charger at my house, 240 volt outlet installed, and it's a Grizzly charger that I use, 40 amps. And it takes me around 3.5 hours to charge this car from empty to completely full, which is not bad at all. I wanted to share these quick calculations with everyone to try and explain why my personal level 2 charger, this Grizzly, takes about 3.5 hours to charge the Lexus NX 450h. Amps times volts equals watts. I can already sense that somebody's going to try to argue with that. Anyway, my charger works on these strict amps, 16, 24, 32, and 40 amps, as you can see here. So when you calculate everything out, these are the watts or the kilowatts that you get. The NX 450h comes standard with a 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger, but the test model that we're looking at has a optional 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, so it can charge up a little bit quicker. The 3.3 kilowatt takes about 4.5 hours, the 6.6 about 2.5, but it takes me 3.5. Why? Because my charger is working at 24 amps, which translates to about 5.76 kilowatts of charging. Because if it worked at 32 amps, then that would be too much for the car at 7.68 kilowatts. The NX can't do that, it can't handle that. Technically, this charger would have to work at 27.5 amps for it to charge at 6.6 kilowatts. Again, I can already tell that somebody's going to say that this is all horribly wrong and completely false and misleading. If that's the case, whoever that one person is going to be, please let us know in the comment section as to why all of this is wrong or as to why this is right. I just figured this is a very simple formula to illustrate why my charger takes 3.5 hours as opposed to 2.5 hours like Lexus states. I'm no expert on these matters or on this topic. I'm no electrical engineer, but this is just the simple formula that I found, and it seems to explain why my charger takes a bit longer to charge. However, this is a good one. I bought it because it's UL certified and tested and all that good stuff. So there you have it. Back to the video. And speaking of the battery packs, we have a couple of different modes that we can put this car into. We can drive in the full EV if we have range, and we can also put it into kind of an automatic mode. And this is going to be best if you know you're going to be traveling out on the highway, because you don't just want to completely deplete and waste your EV range out on the highway. Even though this car is rated to do around 36, 37, or 39 miles of EV range, once you get out on the highway, it drops significantly, maybe not in half, but it will drop maybe 30 to 40% the amount of range that you can get. Also, when you floor it, obviously the range will deplete, and same thing with driving on the highway, as I already mentioned. So instead, what the car will do is, in the auto mode, it will determine for you the best way of using the powertrain and the battery pack setup and all that good stuff. To use the engine's power out on the highway, we have here a 2.5 liter non-turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that we have here. It'll use that power out on the highway, and then once you go back into the city area, it'll go into its EV mode. And the best way to use this car is to genuinely charge this up as much as you can. Use the EV battery pack as much as possible, because the 4-cylinder in this is going to be the least efficient due to the fact that this is the heaviest NX available. So when you have a dead battery pack, you are essentially lugging around dead weight. This weighs around 4,500 pounds. An NX 350H, the hybrid, would weigh around 4,000 pounds, and the lightest weight NX 250 front-wheel drive model, that would be around 3,600 pounds. I'll put it into its little auto mode here. That I step on it, right? This is so quick. Power and speed is not going to be an issue with the NX 450H. It is every bit as quick as people claim it is. People say the RAV4 Prime is also quick. I haven't tried it, but I believe it. And one of the things that's great about this power plant is the fact that it's not like every other EV or electric car where it gives you all the thrust up front. No, this car, it will keep pulling even past 60 miles an hour. It is very good indeed, the power that you get in this car. Every model of the 2022 Lexus NX will come with all-wheel drive, except for the NX 250. That can be had with front-wheel drive, which is fine because it doesn't make much power. It's only like 203 horsepower, the exact same 4-cylinder power output as the RAV4 4-cylinder. But the rest of the engines are genuinely rather quick, such as the NX 350 turbocharged 4-cylinder that does 0 to 60 in about 6.6 seconds, and it's probably quicker than that in the real world if you tested it. That will come with a mechanical all-wheel drive system. Same thing with the NX 250. If you equip that with all-wheel drive, or you paid up for the all-wheel drive option on that, it'll come with a mechanical all-wheel drive system. But with the hybrid models, they also come standard with all-wheel drive, but it's an electric all-wheel drive system, meaning there is a battery pack in the rear powering the rear wheels when you need it to. It's all an on-demand all-wheel drive system, but it's electronic. There's no mechanical drive shaft, if you will, with the hybrid models. Other things to note about this drivetrain: this car does utilize a CVT transmission with the hybrid power plants, but not to worry, this is a very smooth transmission. I don't have an issue with it at all. This isn't a car that you're driving hot-blooded all the time. Yes, it's very quick, it's very fast. However, you don't want to like stomp on it and drive all crazy. That's just not necessary with this car. In fact, my favorite way of driving this is in the EV mode. That's the best way to enjoy this car. It's the most efficient. You're not using any fuel, and it's the smoothest, right? Because yeah, as quick as this 4-cylinder is, I don't necessarily want to listen to it, but it gets up and goes. It does its job. I can't really complain. It's far smoother than the RAV4. So yeah, the CVT is fine. The engine is fine. Everything is fine. So no problems with the drivetrain, in my personal opinion. But there are definitely other attributes here that we need to talk about, like handling and refinement. So let's get into that next. Traction control is super invasive in this car. But regardless of that, this car does have a great handling characteristic, because that's something that even the previous generation NX had. The previous NX, even though I didn't like it, that was a great handling car. We have here a McPherson strut-based suspension in the front, and we also have a double wishbone suspension in the rear. If you got the F Sport model, you would get the adaptive variable suspension, which does not make as much of a difference as you might think. The regular NXs handle so well that a F Sport is not really necessary, but get it if you like the way it looks. This has a planted, reassuring handling characteristic. Out on the highway, you can take long sweeping corners and the car stays rigid and planted. And because this is the heaviest NX available, obviously the high-speed stability is also going to be great. That heavier curb weight will hunker this down pretty well. NX utilizes all new laser peening welding. That's a new technique that's never been used before on any other Lexus car. This also utilizes high rigid foams all throughout the car, which is also a first apparently. They have reduced the center of gravity in this car. And yeah, it handles a bit better than even the previous generation NX. But what people need to understand is this is no longer the plush, soft, pillowy Lexus that you once remembered. Honestly, the plush Lexus days, that was over in 2012. In 2013, when they switched over to the spindle grille design cars, they really improved and sharpened the handling demeanor of just about every Lexus. That doesn't mean that this rides like garbage or anything like that. This is a stiff car, and that's something that Lexus has been doing. They've been stiffening the suspension on their SUVs, even the 2022 RX that I tested. That's one of the things that they've done, is stiffen the suspension. However, the chassis tuning has also been elevated. We have much more rigid chassis, and that means it still does a great job in soaking up the bumps for the most part. Now, one of the main complaints I had with the previous generation NX was the ride quality. It was so off-putting. It was jostling me around. Every time I went over a bump, it would just create these unnecessary body movements, and it genuinely, it would make people car sick. It was not a refined ride quality at all. This fixes pretty much all of that. This hasn't eliminated that jostling effect completely, because I notice it has those tendencies ever so slightly, but for the most part it's gotten rid of it. I just notice it has those tendencies occasionally. Other things, we're riding on 20-inch wheels. You can get 18-inch wheels, which could soften this car up a little bit further, but it's really not super necessary, because even with these 20-inch wheels, the ride quality isn't bad. It does a good job soaking up smaller bumps, larger bumps. It's not a fatiguing car to drive in the least bit. I did like a 3-hour journey in this in one day, and again, the car is reasonably comfortable. The seats are comfortable, so I didn't mind it. But one thing to note is the refinement of this car could be better. Okay, this is a louder cabin space. It's quieter than it used to be in the old NX, and it's certainly better than the RAV4. But something like the 2022 RX is still quieter. This exudes a little bit more tire noise. Out in the higher speeds, we can get some wind noise. But for the most part, around town, it's totally fine. Under like 55 mile per hour driving, you should be totally happy with it. One of their weight-saving techniques includes ditching the spare tire in these Lexus NX cars, and they went with a run-flat tire. So perhaps it's the run-flats causing the higher road noise, but it is what it is. Most people don't have an issue driving the RAV4. I'm assuming nobody's going to have an issue driving this either. And once again, turning radius is excellent. I mean, the whole car is about 183.5 inches long total, so it's not a very large car. Easy to place out on the road. Seating position is great. The side mirrors are large and you can see everything clearly. And because of its more petite size, you can easily fit this in a garage, no doubt about it. We do have your regenerative braking, but it's not very strong at all. The whole car feels extremely natural to drive. There's no weirdness with it. It just feels like you're driving a traditional car, which Lexus and Toyota, they've pretty much mastered the craft of hybrids and electrified drivetrains. They've been doing this for like over 20 years, right, with the Prius and all that good stuff. And the brakes are pretty strong. It'll definitely bring you to a halt. I have plenty of confidence in them. Another thing to note about the refinement of this car, once the EV range has completely depleted and it switches over to the engine, you hardly even notice a transition. It doesn't feel like you're driving a piece of cardboard around. This feels like a upscale premium product compared to the RAV4. You also notice it in the steering as well. It's direct, it's predictable, it has the correct amount of weight to it. Again, it doesn't feel like a cardboard box to whip it around, unlike the RAV4. And the elevated driving dynamics certainly help with that. Having that reduced body roll improved suspension technology. This is now a car that I can confidently recommend to people shopping for an SUV. Before, I would just tell people to skip the NX completely and just pay up for the RX. Now, this is a great choice. Especially now in today's market, we don't really have much of a choice. If you just have to buy whatever's in the lot and there are no RXs available for whatever reason and you have to get a NX, then go ahead. You will like this car. Despite some of its shortcomings here and there, this is a good product. But there are some other questionable attributes that I would like to address in the interior segment. So let's go ahead and let's transition over to the interior now. Let's start from the outside because the door handles seem to be a topic of debate for many people because this is an electronic door handle. There's a button that you press here and that's how you get inside, as long as you have the key fob in your pocket, which, let me show you the key fob here. This car, this new NX, gets the updated key fob, which I really appreciate. This is what the LC500s, the LSs come with. I did not like the previous key fob, so good upgrade here. Back to the doors. Let's just climb inside, close the door. If you want to exit the vehicle, press this button, and that's how you get out. For whatever reason, if that does not work, then you can press this twice, and you can exit the car that way. A lot of people really despise this. Apparently, it's fine when the C8 Corvette does it, but it's not cool here. I get it. You know, it's an unnecessary, complicated mechanism for no apparent reason. For that reason, I don't like it, but it's not like a deterring factor for me. It's not going to make me not want to buy the car, right? Let's talk about the door panel here. We have a piece of wood, so nice little accent there. I appreciate the fact that this is not some glossy texture. We have the three-way memory seats. We have our one-touch up and down windows for all four windows. And again, these are double pane glass. You have your traditional mirror controls, and if you press this auto button, whenever you lock and unlock the vehicle, the mirrors will fold in and out automatically. Always make sure to press the auto button. Once again, we have some stitch work and some leather padding all throughout here on the door panel, but on the bottom portion we have hard touch plastics. Fortunately, you have a decent amount of space in the door bins for a bottle, and this is the nasty 10-speaker audio system, which I will talk about later. Let's go ahead, let's close this door, and let's start the vehicle up. We have here push button start, of course. And there you have it. This car does have AT&T Wi-Fi hotspot built in, and this is the all-new 2022 Lexus NX interior space. Obviously, the biggest highlight with the interior of this new NX is going to be the fact that there is no Mark Levinson audio system on offer with this fully loaded NX 450h Plus. I have no idea what they were thinking. This car has the nasty 10-speaker audio system. It sounds so muddled and gross. I do not like this audio system. I thought, what am I listening to here? Because when I got into this car for the first time, I assumed this had the 17-speaker Mark Levinson because it's the fully loaded $60,000 NX. But it's not on offer for the plug-in hybrid variants because, from what I've heard, they ditched the ML audio for the NX 450s because of weight savings. That's just totally absurd. I don't care if that audio system adds an extra 500 pounds to the curb weight. I want my ML at this price point. That is a massive con with the 450Hs. You can get the ML audio in literally every other NX except for this model. It's another reason why I suggest getting the NX 350H if you like to listen to your music. If you don't care about music, then, you know, it is what it is. I have to admit, even a Toyota JBL audio system sounds better than this 10-speaker. With that out of the way, let's talk about the infotainment screen, because this 14-inch display, this is the biggest change for the NX interiors compared to the previous generation. Gone is the touchpad, no more touchpad here. Many people despised it. I was not one of those people, to be honest. In my opinion, I actually like the touchpad infotainment. Everybody else hated it, I liked it. But regardless, that's gone. Now we have this. And I have to admit, more people are going to appreciate this because it's so simple to use. This is easily one of the best infotainments offered in the industry currently. I mean, I had no issues with the old one, but this one is just so much more crisp and quick to respond. You can pinch and zoom like really quick if you had the navigation subscription turned on. But anyway, you get the point. This is so simplistic, no learning curve necessary. It has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Even though this is a massive touchscreen and they implemented a lot of the climate control features into the touchscreen, I don't mind it. I'm not upset. This is still very easy to use. Access to fan speed. You can just put everything in auto mode if you want to. That way the heated and cooled seats, the heated steering wheel, all of that will work in automatic mode. We also have here physical dials to play with for your temperature, and I really like this blue to red hue going on. You also have a physical volume knob and physical buttons for your window defrosters. So you have the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you will also get that in the base screen as well. So this is the optional 14-inch. This is the one everybody wants, but the base screen is a 9.8-inch touchscreen, which I think that will also be more than enough, because 9.8 inches, I mean, that's pretty massive. Most screens that we're used to, they're like 8 inches, 8.4. 9.8 is pretty good. And like I already mentioned, it does have the Wi-Fi hotspot also built in if you want to use that. It also has Apple Music and Amazon Music already embedded into this car. So if you have an account, you can just sign in, and you don't even have to bring your phone. It'll just automatically sync with your account if that's the music streaming service that you use. Now, I want to talk about the steering wheel and the controls on them, including the gauge cluster. So we have here a heads-up display, which is cool. Many people like that. Many people want that. However, a lot of the controls for the gauge cluster is controlled via the buttons on the steering wheel. All the functions, you have to look through it from the heads-up display. It is so distracting and so confusing. It is unlike this infotainment system, which is easy and requires no learning curve. This is the opposite. So let me show you here. This is kind of a touch capacitive button. Maybe you can see it on the screen there with the heads-up display. You have to like press in for enter and all that stuff. It's just so confusing to operate this while you're driving. They did it so it's not confusing while you're driving. It's not distracting, but that's what it is. And just zoom in here so you can see the heads-up display. A lot of your forward driving and your driving assistance buttons, it's all accessed through your heads-up display of all things. And you can also control from the left side, where if you want to control your Bluetooth, your calls, your music, it's all done from the left side of the steering wheel. Very bizarre, very poor choice in how they wanted to implement this. So that's gross. But you do have your volume controls on the steering wheel here as well as your radar cruise control, lane keep assistance for hands-free driving, but it's not really hands-free driving. Yes, you have to have the hands on the steering wheel because it'll beep at you if you don't. Regardless, the feature works extremely well out on the highway. Even when you go over a bump, the wheel does a great job correcting itself. And when you're taking long sweeping turns on the highway, it'll do a great job in compensating. The Lexus Safety Suite 3.0 Plus is brilliant. Really like all of these standard safety features that Lexus has to offer. That's not an issue. But we have introduced a certain level of complexity here with the heads-up display and with the gauge cluster. It's not quite as easy to use like it used to be. But I can cycle through, show you this gauge cluster. It's all digital, of course. Shows some good information, including your EV range, your fuel range, and your fuel economy, your odometer, and your speed limit warning, all that stuff shown on the gauge cluster here. It will change when you put the vehicle into sport mode, so you get a little display there, and the gauges turn red. And you can put the vehicle into eco mode as well. Press in for normal, which is my most favorite mode to drive around in. We do have a wireless charging pad, which is an extra option. Even though this is the NX450H, there's still a lot of little options like $200, $800 options that you have to add on top of the NX450 base price. I'm shocked that most of it doesn't come as standard, but it is what it is. So you have this wireless charging pad. You can push that away for even more storage inside, but the problem I notice with this wireless charging pad is it's a large space, and when you're driving and the phone moves around, it no longer charges. So that's unfortunate. But at least it does register my phone with my phone case on it. I have an iPhone 13 Pro Max. I've been noticing a lot of issues with the wireless charging pads of most cars, like the Genesis products I've tested. It doesn't even register my phone, but anyway. You have a USB-C port, regular USB, and some storage here as well. I don't know what you would put in there because it's pretty shallow. You also have a parking sensor button that you can press, check the surrounding area, if you will, and you also have a camera view button, which shows you this pointless display. I mean, it's not pointless, it's cool, I guess. You would also press this if you're parking your car like forwards like this. If you want to get a view of what you're driving into, then you can press that button as well. Let's put the car into reverse and I'll show you the actual backup cameras. So we do have the optional 360 camera, which is great to see. The lines will move with your steering input, and you can kind of change the viewing angle as well. So the backup cameras, not a problem. And this is a digital gear shifting knob. I do like how the the side view mirrors will go down when you put the vehicle into reverse. That's always a great touch. And you could program it depending on how much you want the mirror to fold down when you put the vehicle into reverse as well. Surprised to see some gloss black plastic being used. Lexus does a pretty good job of avoiding the gloss black plastic. But here we have it here on the NX. Not a big deal, just thought I would point it out. Traction control off button. Yeah, that's going to be your friend in this if you want to drive this car more aggressively, because as we saw in the drive, the traction control is very aggressive. And this is where you can control your EV settings. Like you can put the EV or this entire car into an automatic mode, so the car can determine what's the most efficient way of driving, how much it needs to use the EV battery pack versus the regular hybrid type of driving mode. It'll kind of calculate that for you, but you can also put the vehicle into its full EV mode, and if you have enough charge, you can just drive in full EV, which is a great thing to see. You have electronic parking brake, 2 cup holders, not too bad. Here we have the gas cap release and the trunk release. We also have automatic headlights, automatic wiper stock. We have paddle shifters, which is pretty much worthless. We have a CVT transmission, does perfectly fine in the normal mode. We also have a double hinged center armrest, which is leather padded, and there's definitely a good amount of space in here, so that's nice to see. We also have some decent space in the center glove box despite the massive books. So we have that, and we have a regular sunroof with the plug-in hybrids because again they want to save weight. So at least we have a regular sunroof. I know many people like that. And we have a bezel-less mirror with the garage home link. We also have a SOS button in case of emergency. Now, I am going to step outside of this vehicle so I can demonstrate and show you the excellent seats that we have. They're not much to look at, but they are extremely comfortable on a long trip. Plenty of lumbar support. Here are your seat controls as well. It doesn't have like that super soft new luxe plush feel that the 2022 RX 350 has, but it's more of a firmer leather. You know it's going to be durable. It's going to last a test of time. But regardless, I like these seats because they're super comfortable even on a long trip. So that's great to see. Let's go ahead and let's transition over to the rear seats now. Here's a look at the rear seats. The comfort continues back here. That's not a problem. Door panel. And let's climb inside. We have so much space back here. I am 5'11". Getting in and out of this car is not even remotely an issue, but check out this legroom. Lexus was smart enough to mount these front seats a little bit higher, so you have plenty of space to stow your feet underneath these front seats. It's amazing. When you have more toe room like this, you get a couple extra inches of legroom as well. I'm glad Lexus designed the seats like this for the front. So I'm 5'11". I can easily sit behind myself. Granted, I do sit a bit closer to the steering wheel than most people my size, but whatever. This is still good. This is literally almost as much space as the Lexus RX 350 from 2022. Very impressive. We also have your vents to play with and USB-C ports, I'm assuming, yep, and auxiliary. Surprised they gave you those, you know, that might add some weight to the car. Anyway, I do like how this is almost flat. We have a bit of a center tunnel here, but it's not too bad. You could sit 5 people in here, 5 adults, but it's best for 4, obviously. That's how it is with most of these cars. I really appreciate just how spacious this car is. I mean, this is pretty much the exact same size as the previous generation NX, but with way more interior space and way more trunk space. And of course, you can fold down these seats 60/40, and we also have here a center armrest as well with 2 cup holders in it. Electronic doors continue back here as well. So with that, let's go ahead and let's check out the trunk space now. You can just kick underneath the vehicle like that to open up the trunk. And as we can see, no real sacrifice in trunk space either. Plenty of space back here. We don't have the electronic switches to fold down the rear seats like that, but in other models of the RX, you could get electronic buttons to press to lower the back seats there. We also do not have a spare tire because Lexus ditched that in order to save weight. So instead we have run flat tires, which don't help with the road noise. We also have a battery pack, sorry, the 12-volt battery in here, along with a useless 120-volt charger. Totally pointless. You need to have the 240-volt or level 2 charging. And you have some space in here, a little tonneau cover. Actually, you can remove this tonneau cover and stow it right here on top of the useless 120-volt charger or level 1 charger. So yeah, this should not be an issue for most people at all. You can also press this button and it will lock all the doors. So there you have it. Let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. Okay, conclusions on the 2022 Lexus NX 450h plug-in hybrid. Like I already mentioned during the drive, this is certainly a car that I can recommend to families now. This is a far more refined and dignified driving experience compared to the previous generation, plus it just looks way cooler and sleeker now as well. We have all new technology, new infotainments, which I think most people will like and appreciate here. Whether you get the base model 9.8-inch screen or the 14-inch display, I think they're all going to be fantastic for most people because so many people just happen to despise the touchpad, which I never had an issue with it, but most people do. We also have 4 drivetrain options, and even though this is the only drivetrain that I have tested, I'm sure that the other models like the 350h and the turbocharged 4-cylinder found in the regular 350, I'm sure all of that is going to do just fine for most families. I of course recommend getting the 350h because one of the biggest benefits of the new Lexus NX is the fact that they are efficient cars. They get great MPGs. If it were up to me, I would definitely get the NX 350h. That would be my choice in the lineup due to the price. When I spec'd one out, it was around $49,000 with the Mark Levinson, and you can actually get the ML audio when you go with any other model of the Lexus NX aside from this NX 450h, the fully loaded model. So you got the ML, you're getting like 40 MPG with the 350h. You have a much lower buy-in price. And yes, it sucks that you have to use premium fuel. I'm assuming most Lexus owners are going to completely disobey that instruction, but regardless, it's a good, efficient choice and a pragmatic choice from a price standpoint. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I will show you how to get 2.5% off MSRP on a NX250 or an NX350. Well, that's going to be through a company known as AutoCompanion. I have partnered up with them. They are located in the Washington, D.C. area. They have partnerships with many massive Lexus dealerships in that area. They have partnerships with other manufacturers as well, like BMW, Audi, etc. But if you're watching this, I'm assuming you're interested in the NX, right? So they're offering discounts on those two particular cars. And with the 350h, they told me it's about a 6-month wait. It's going to be a car that you have to build and you have to wait for it. With the 450h Plus plug-in hybrid, if you want it, I'm assuming the wait is going to be a year or two, which is pretty nuts. I would say at that point, it might be a better idea to put a deposit down for the new RX 450h or RX 350h, because that's also an all-new vehicle and fully redesigned with efficient powertrains as well. The RX will always be the more refined and more premium choice because obviously it sits above the NX, right? That might be something to look into if you are willing to wait. Maybe the RX might be the way to go, the new one at least. But if you want a car now, then the gasoline-powered, the pure gasoline-powered NXs might be the way to go for you. You will have to pay a broker fee of $500, but if you sign up with my link, you can get $50 off of that broker fee. And if you're not local to Washington, D.C., you can have the car shipped to you. Again, that's going to be another expense. I'm sure if everybody could have their way, they would easily go with the 350h or this 450h, even though you can't get the ML audio in this. It's so powerful that you can get nearly 40 miles of pure EV range. That's so good for so many families, but unfortunately, with the wait and the delay and the markups that most dealerships will be charging, it's just not a pragmatic choice, unfortunately. But if by some miracle you can secure an NX 450h, go for it. It is efficient. It is cool. Instead of going with the full EV, this makes a lot of sense. But regardless, it's going to be on you and what's going to be available to you. I will have all of AutoCompanion's links down in the description box below. Thanks for watching this video. The next video will be on the end screen here, and I'll see you there.